Let me ask you something real quick. You're at home right now, aren't you? Maybe on the couch, maybe in bed, maybe snacking on something while this video plays in the background. Now I want you to imagine you look out the window and your neighbor from the third floor is completely out of his mind, tearing into someone's throat on the front lawn. And then you look down the hallway and there are 6 more of them coming straight for you, fast, feral, eyes like they forgot what a human being is. That's #alive. The 2020 Korean survival thriller that spent weeks in Netflix's global top 10. And unlike almost everything else the zombie genre has ever produced, it doesn't drop you in an open field. It doesn't send you down a highway with a shotgun and a pickup truck. It puts you exactly where you are right now, in your apartment, in your city, with whatever's left in your fridge. And today I'm going to prove to you step by step why you would not make it. I'm going to break down how this virus actually works, what makes these infected fundamentally different from anything you've seen in The Walking Dead or Dawn of the Dead, why the main character, Oh Jun-woo, only survived because the screenplay decided he should, and what you would actually need to have a fighting chance in a scenario like this. The film doesn't waste your time explaining where the virus came from. No lab scene, no patient zero press conference, no CDC briefing, no conspiracy. One morning, Seoul just collapses. People start attacking each other in the streets and hallways and elevator lobbies, and within hours, a city of 10 million people becomes an open-air nightmare. That's intentional, and it's also the most terrifying detail in the entire movie. Jun-woo finds out what's happening the way most of us would, through his TV. He's home alone, his family left earlier that morning, and the news cuts to footage of people being attacked in broad daylight. He walks to the window and sees the chaos erupting in his apartment complex. He makes the right call. He locks himself in. But here's what I need you to notice. He could only make that call because he was home, because he was awake, because the TV was already on. 3 conditions that have to line up simultaneously. 3 conditions you might not have when it counts. Now let's talk about how this infection actually operates, because the rules here are savage. The incubation window isn't spelled out in exact minutes, but based on what we see on screen, the transformation happens fast. Not hours, minutes, 1 bite, 1 deep scratch, and you're gone. That one detail completely rewrites the math on any rescue attempt or escape plan you think you have. Infrastructure collapses at a pace that should genuinely terrify you. Power goes out, running water stops, cell service drops, and then the internet goes dark. When the internet goes, Jun-woo, a gamer, a streamer, someone whose entire life runs through a screen, loses contact with his family, has no idea if there's a rescue operation, has no idea if the government is still functioning. Take away someone's phone signal for an hour today and watch their anxiety spike. Now put that same person in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. The scale of the problem in Seoul is staggering, but I want you to think about this through an American lens, because this is your reality too. New York City, Chicago, Atlanta, dense apartment buildings with hundreds of units, narrow corridors, elevators, stairwells. Every enclosed space becomes a potential kill box. This isn't like a zombie movie where the hero hops in a truck and drives to a farm in rural Georgia. In a megacity, in any American city above a certain density, you are surrounded by people. And infected people are threats in constant motion on every floor of your building. Think about your own building for a second. How many units? How many floors? Now imagine 70% of your neighbors got turned in the first few hours. They didn't disappear. They're still there. In the hallway on the staircase near the entrance, waiting for sound, for movement, for any sign that something warm is still breathing nearby. That's what Jun-woo is dealing with. And he still has the advantage of being on a high floor behind a reinforced door with enough food to last a few days. Would you have that? I need to spend real time here because this is the part most people get wrong. There's a natural tendency, because of years of zombie pop culture, to underestimate the threat. We grew up watching slow, dumb walkers that you can sidestep with a bicycle or knock down with a baseball bat. The Walking Dead spent 12 seasons making the dead feel manageable if you stayed smart. That built a cultural illusion that you could actually handle this. You can't. And the infected in #alive are the clearest possible proof. Let's break it down by comparison. The Romero classic, slow, shuffling, dangerous, only in numbers. You can outpace 1, 2, 3. The threat is being surrounded, not outrun. A slow zombie gives you an escape window. The infected in #alive give you no window. They retain advanced motor function. They don't stumble. They sprint with coordination. And here's the detail that genuinely unsettles me. They use tools. There's a scene where an infected uses a rope to climb toward a target, not with strategic planning, but the animal drive to reach the prey is still fully operational. That changes everything. It means your 5th floor apartment is not automatically safe. It means an unbarred window is not an exit. It's a potential entry point. They have amplified senses. Sound draws them in. Any sound. A mug falling off a counter, a cough, a sneeze, a floorboard. If you've ever lived in an apartment with thin walls and most of us have, you already know that sound travels. Every neighbor's argument, every late night TV show, you complained about it. Now those same walls are broadcasting your location to the dead, and they don't fatigue the way you do. You can sprint 100 yards at full speed and then you're done. You need 30 seconds minimum to recover. They don't operate on that cycle. Their pain threshold appears suppressed. They don't retreat out of self-preservation. They advance. Now picture yourself trying to cross the hallway of your floor, 30, maybe 40 feet to the stairwell. You've walked that hallway 1,000 times without thinking, but now there are 4 of them between you and the door. You have no weapon, no combat training, and you're terrified, which means your fine motor skills are already degraded, your decision making is already compromised, and your body is flooding itself with cortisol. You don't make it across that hallway. I'm sorry, you just don't. There is one weakness the film doesn't fully explore, but that exists in the logic of the world. They seem reactive more than proactive. If you emit no signal, no sound, no visible movement, they may not immediately detect you. That's a narrow window for stealth movement, but that window requires a level of physical discipline, controlled breathing, deliberate footsteps, managing your own heart rate, that when you are genuinely terrified is physiologically impossible to maintain through willpower alone. And here's a real data point that almost nobody knows. Behavioral studies on humans in acute panic situations show that approximately 80% of people freeze. They do nothing. Paralysis. It's an ancient nervous system response. Play dead for the predator. But here, freezing is just dying on a delay. You're probably in that 80%. So am I. So is almost everyone reading this. When you see something sprinting at you with a human face twisted into something unrecognizable, your brain doesn't shift into problem-solving mode. It shuts down. And by the time it reboots, the window is gone. Junwoo is not a trained survivor. He's a gamer. A streamer who happened to be home when the world ended. Because his family left early that morning. No military background, no survival training, no weapons. He is an ordinary person that the screenplay was generous enough to keep alive. But even as an ordinary person, he has a specific set of advantages that you probably don't. First, the apartment. Junwoo's place has space, a stock kitchen, enough material to improvise ropes, tools, rigging. It's a middle-class Korean household, well supplied with a pantry. Now ask yourself, when did you last actually look at what's in your pantry? Like really inventory it? Because it matters more than you think in about 2 minutes. Second, the psychological profile. Junwoo is introverted. He's used to spending days alone in a room with screens and no social interaction. For him, quarantine is closer to Tuesday than to trauma. For most people, especially Americans who are used to commuting, socializing, constant external stimulation, forced isolation in a terror scenario is psychologically devastating in ways the film shows, but softens considerably. Third, luck. This is the most important factor and the most ignored one. Junwoo survives multiple moments not because of skill or preparation, but because circumstances bend in his favor at the exact right second. There's a sequence where he moves through an area with infected and makes it not because of speed or training, but because they were distracted at that precise moment. That's not skill. That's a coin flip. You can't train for luck. You can't stockpile it. You can't buy it at Bass Pro Shops. When he eventually uses a drone to make contact with his neighbor Kim Yubin across the building, that's also luck. She was alive. She was directly across from him. She had supplies. She had enough psychological stability to cooperate. Change any one of those variables and he's dead. In real life, what would you actually have? Neighbors you barely know. Probably some who've already turned. Nobody with a drone, nobody with extra food across the hall, and a very good chance that no one in your sightline is alive and signaling back at you. This is the most uncomfortable part of the video. Let's talk about what survival in a #alive scenario would genuinely demand. Not the Hollywood version, not the video game version, the actual version. Water. Without infrastructure, running water stops. Not in days, potentially in hours, depending on your building's pressurization system. A human being survives 3 days without water. 3 days. Do you have water stored right now? Not the bottle in your fridge. Actual stored water in volume sufficient for weeks? Almost nobody does. Junwoo collects rainwater. That works in the narrative. In practice, urban rainwater is not clean. It absorbs particulates, atmospheric pollution, whatever is on your roof. And without a proper filtration setup, it could make you sick faster than dehydration. But it's what he has, and it's probably what you'd have too. Food. Open your fridge right now, in your mind. No power. Everything that requires refrigeration, meat, dairy, leftovers, starts spoiling within 2 hours in summer heat. What's left? Canned goods, dried pasta, rice, beans, peanut butter. How much of that do you actually have on hand? Be honest. In Korea, Junwoo had kimchi, a fermented food designed for long-term storage, along with instant ramen and shelf-stable pantry staples that are deeply embedded in Korean food culture. In America, your best bet is the Costco run you probably didn't take seriously. A prepper's pantry, MREs, canned goods, freeze-dried meals, sounds extreme until day 4 when the lights are out. Weapons. And this is where the American scenario diverges completely from the Korean one, and from the Brazilian one too. In Korea, civilian gun ownership is essentially non-existent. In Brazil, access to firearms, while it's increased in recent years, is still heavily restricted. The average Brazilian civilian almost certainly doesn't own a gun. But in the United States, we live in a different world. The Second Amendment isn't just a law, it's a culture. Your neighbor in a suburb of Nashville probably has a Glock 19 in the nightstand. The guy in rural Texas has a Remington 870 shotgun by the back door, a .357 revolver in the gun safe, and an AR-15 he shoots at the range twice a month. The mom in suburban Georgia has a concealed carry permit and keeps a Smith & Wesson .38 special in her purse. "I've got a 12 gauge in the truck" is not a movie line in America. It's a sentence that gets said in real life. But even with guns, hear me out, a firearm is loud. In a building full of sound-sensitive infected, a gunshot is a dinner bell. You solve one problem and potentially create 50 more. This is a genuine strategic dilemma that the best American zombie fiction, The Walking Dead, Zombieland, wrestles with constantly. And if you do have a gun, do you have enough ammo? Are you actually proficient with it under stress, not just at the range on a calm Saturday? Because firing a weapon in a closed apartment without hearing protection causes permanent hearing loss, which means you've now removed one of your most critical survival senses. #Alive works as a film precisely because it traps you in a real space with real limitations and gives you a real person, not a superhero, not a Navy SEAL, just trying not to die. And everything this video has been building toward is this. Ordinary doesn't survive by default. Ordinary survives through a very specific combination of minimal preparation, favorable circumstance, sufficient psychological resilience, and a generous quantity of luck that you cannot purchase, train for, or guarantee. Oh, Junwoo had all of those things, aligned in sequence at the right moments. The screenplay made sure of that. Real life doesn't have a screenplay. This isn't about whether you're tough enough or smart enough. Survival in a collapse scenario isn't a character test. It's a logistics test. It's about preparation nobody does, resources nobody has, and timing nobody controls. This is just like Katrina in one specific way. People weren't failed by weakness or cowardice. They were failed by systems that weren't built for what actually happened. The difference is, in a zombie apocalypse, FEMA isn't coming. The National Guard checkpoint on I-75 might not hold. The CDC announcement on your emergency alert system might be the last official communication you ever receive. The question isn't, do you have the will to survive? Almost everyone does. The question is, do you have the water, the food, the plan, the weapons, and the psychological reserves to actually execute when it counts? Probably not. I know I don't. Not right now, not today. Drop a comment and be honest with me. What's your actual first move if this kicks off right now, at this exact moment? Not what you'd like to do, what you'd actually do. I genuinely want to read the answers. And if you want me to break down the next film, tell me which one in the comments. Every scenario has its own specific reasons to kill you in completely different ways. And we've got a lot of ground to cover. If this video hit different, leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell too, because YouTube has a very creative approach to not showing people the videos they actually want to see. See you in the next one.